In a convent in Ireland, the 98-year-old Mother Superior lay dying. The nuns gathered around her bed trying to make her last journey comfortable. They tried giving her warm milk to drink, but she refused it. One of the nuns took the glass back to the kitchen. Then, remembering a bottle of Irish whiskey that had been received as a gift the previous Christmas, she opened it and poured a generous amount into the warm milk. Back at Mother Superior's bed, they held the glass to her lips. The frail nun drank a little, then a little more, and before they knew it, she had finished the whole glass down to the last drop. As her eyes brightened, the nuns thought it would be a good opportunity to have one last talk with their spiritual leader.
Mother,
the nuns asked earnestly,
please give us some of your wisdom before you leave us.
She raised herself up in bed on one elbow, looked at them and said,
"Don't sell that cow."
A woman was in bed with her lover when she heard her husband opening the front door. In a panic, she told her lover,
"Hurry, stand in the corner. Don't move until I tell you. Just shut your eyes and pretend you're a statue."
At that moment, her husband walked into the room.
"What's this, honey?"
"Oh, it's just a statue. The Smiths bought one for their bedroom. I liked it so much, I got one for us too."
They went to sleep, and then around 3 o'clock in the morning, the husband got out of bed, went to the kitchen, and came back with a sandwich and a glass of milk. He said to the statue,
"Eat something."
I stood like an idiot at the Smiths for 3 days, and nobody offered me so much as a glass of water.
A university poses the following question to the best student in each subject. A train crashes on the border between France and Germany. Where do you bury the survivors? The physics student replied by saying that,
Since a border is a two-dimensional object and humans are 3D, they would have to be buried in both France and Germany simultaneously.
The law student stated that,
The families would have to decide the burial locations, therefore the question is unanswerable.
The mathematics student stated that
they would have to calculate the shortest distance from the crash site to the closest cemetery, therefore the answer is the country with the nearest burial site.
Finally, the psychology student states that
The answer is nowhere. Because why would you bury the survivors?
the lone brunette in a family of blondes, Tamara, returns home from her first semester at university. Her family was super excited to see her, especially her younger sister, Lisa. Tamara was the first person in the family to go to university, and she had a million questions for her. When they finally got some time alone, Lisa began peppering Tamara with questions.
"What was your favorite class?"
Replied Tamara.
Well, I really enjoyed logic.
"What's logic?"
Tamara paused to think. "Well," she began.
Let me give you an example. You have a dog, right?
"Yes, of course, Dwyer, our German Shepherd."
Perfect. So from that knowledge, I can infer that you likely have a house with a yard, as German Shepherds are typically outdoor dogs. Right?
"That's right."
Great. So if you have a dog and a house with a yard, this probably means that one or both of your parents are employed, bringing in more money than the family spends, and are generally respectable, upstanding members of society, right?
"Yep."
"Well, there you go, that's logic in action," concluded Tamara. Excited and bursting with this new knowledge, Lisa decided to go next door to and show off with the neighbor.
"Hey, Zach. Do you know what logic is?"
No.
He replied.
"Okay, watch. Do you have a dog?"
No.
Replied Zach.
"Well, your parents are degenerate scum."
A guy was taking his year-end final for his course at a university. The time is up, all of the others have handed in their tests, and this one guy keeps on writing. The professor comes over to him and says,
Time's up. Hand in your test.
He ignores this and keeps writing.
If you don't hand your paper over now, I'll disqualify your test.
And the guy keeps on writing. So, the professor goes back to his table and begins grading tests. Eventually, the guy walks up to the professor's table.
I already told you that if you don't give your test in, I won't accept it.
The boy looks at him sharply and says in a loud voice,
Professor! Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am?
Says the professor,
No.
Good.
who stuffs his test into the pile of papers on the professor's desk and runs. 2 university students had a week of exams coming up but decided to party instead. When they got to their exam, they decided to tell the professor their car had broken down the night before due to a flat tire, and they needed a bit more time to study. The professor told them they could have another day to study. That evening, both of the boys crammed all night until they were sure they knew just about everything. Arriving at class the next morning, each boy was told to go to a separate classroom to take the exam. Each shrugged and went to different parts of the building. As each sat down, they read the first question. For 5 points, explain the contents of an atom. At this point, they both thought this was going to be a piece of cake and answered the question with ease. The test continued. For 95 points, tell me which tire it was. A Nobel Prize-winning mathematician is traveling from university to university on a speaking tour by limousine. After several engagements, the mathematician and his driver are having dinner, and the driver says,
I've heard your speech so many times, I think I could give it word for word.
The mathematician accepts the challenge, and they switch places for the next speech. The driver dresses like the professor, and the professor dresses as the driver and sits in the back of the auditorium. The driver gives the speech flawlessly and opens up the floor for questions. Usually, there are none. However, one of the students at the university has a very large ego and decides to attempt to stump the Nobel Prize winner. After the student asks his question for 10 straight minutes, the driver laughs and says,
That question is so simple, I'll let my driver in the back answer it.
The son of a multi-billionaire mogul goes to study in Europe. One night, he phones his parents. Dad.
How's your life going, son?
Son.
It's going well, Dad.
Dad.
Is something wrong? You don't sound happy.
Son.
No, Dad, everything's fine. Berlin is wonderful, the people are nice, and I really like it here.
Dad.
Son, tell me the truth. I know something's not right.
Son.
Dad, I am a bit ashamed to drive to my college with my gold Ferrari 599 GTB when all my teachers and many fellow students travel by train.
Dad.
My dear son, why didn't you say so earlier? I will send you 15 million euros this instant. Please stop embarrassing us and go and get yourself a train, too.